They want me hiding out and playing low. There's nothing new to me. Well, you can always find a place to go if you can keep your sanity. They break down the doors and they break my rights, but they won't touch me. They scream and yell and fight all night. You can't tell me. I lose my head. I close my eyes. They won't touch me. 'Cause I got something I've been building up inside for so long. They're out to get me. They won't catch me. I'm fucking innocent. They won't break me. They're out to get me. They won't catch me. 'Cause I'm innocent. Believe me. So you can suck me. Take that one to heart.
I gotta tell you something, Joe Rossinello. I was just thinking that. Everybody out there joining us at Real Truth News with Joe and Joe. It's been a while, Joe Rossinello.
Feels good. Feels good.
Yeah, it feels good to be going live. Now we're across everywhere. We're on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook, but we're there, whatever. But primarily Rumble, YouTube. We're really, Rumble and Twitter, X. We're really trying to build it up. So if you're watching us, please share it. A couple things, Joe. The dance. I'm never going to get over that dance. Okay, now,
it's scarring, actually.
Yeah, like he's like going like this, and I'll tell you something. I don't know, Joe. Obviously, since we've gotten together, there's been a lot going on. You got Republican debates. I'm going to tell you something. I know that people will disagree with me. My finger is moving towards Trump. When the primary comes, and we'll talk about Colorado. When the primary comes, my finger is moving towards Trump, and when obviously the general election, I'm not voting. I'm going to vote for whoever the Republican is. But as I said, Joe, except if it's Nikki Haley or Mike Pence, I'm not voting for either one of those characters. Neither one, for a variety of reasons. But Trump's wearing on me. He seemed, and you want to know what, Joe? They know he could win. I'm going to hand it over to you. They know he could win. And that's why what's going on in Colorado is going on, and I think it's just gonna get worse. What are your thoughts, brother?
Well, let's just set the stage. I mean, there was a 4-3 decision by the Colorado Supreme Court. Basically, all those justices, by the way, were appointed by Democratic governors. First time in history under the Section 3 of the 14th Amendment has a presidential candidate been disqualified. First time in history.
Right.
Another point. Trump could lose Colorado and still win the election. 13.
Whoever the Republican is going to lose Colorado.
He lost by 13 percentage points in 2020. But ultimately, this is the testing of the waters. If this flies, you're going to see other states do it. It's troubling. You see, I don't see this as a Trump issue. I see this as a democracy issue. If you don't like Trump, don't vote for him. That's all. Don't vote for him. It's a democracy.
Right.
It's troubling. And I'll be honest with you. If it was Barack Obama, it would trouble me.
Well, Joe, you got to, if you say that you believe, like that's what we're always told, you got to believe in democracy. Okay. If you say that, well, then no, whoever I vote for, and F you if you don't like who I voted for. Like Rob Reiner, meathead, all right, is on X, okay? And Meathead says that Donald Trump being elected president or Joe Biden not being elected president is a direct attack on our democracy. What the F are you talking about?
No,
what if the majority of people in the United States, all right, the majority of the states go for Donald Trump? That is an exercise of the democratic process. What's the problem? It's not a destruction of democracy. And I'll tell you another thing, Joe, and I love
you. Just replace democracy with our power. You see, that's all it is. Again, let's just be honest. If you don't want to vote for him, don't. That's all. Donald Trump's not the solution to Americans' problems. I voted for him. I'm voting for him again. But ultimately, he's not the solution to America's problems. And here's another thing. Even if he was to win, the system doesn't work.
Yeah.
He would have to have a super majority to move anything.
And listen, the supermajority wouldn't do him any good because how many Republicans are not doing anything?
That's exactly, Joe. You took the words right out of my mouth. I was just going to say that. So all he could really do if he was the president, this is being very sober. He could elect judges on the federal level and the Supreme Court if it was to come up. He could write executive orders. Outside of that, he's limited extremely. And what that should say to people is this: our government does not represent you. Whether you call yourself a Republican or a Democrat, our government does not represent the people. And that is what the Donald Trump model taught me. It simply doesn't. George Bush is part of the establishment. Nikki Haley is part of the establishment. Mike Pence,
Mitt Romney,
all of them. They don't represent us. And people have to get that through their head, Joe. And I'm going to tell you why. Politics is about coalitions. There's never a pure, I mean, we live in a pluralistic society. It's never been that way. It never will be. I view it as a survival coalition because ultimately elitists side with globalists and globalists embrace green energy models. And if you are voting for a green energy model and you are not in the 1%, the elite upper echelons that run everything, you are going to economically get steamrolled. And if you think I'm just saying that, what I would say is this: look at Canada.
I was going to say, didn't they pass a carbon tax?
Two
carbon taxes. Who does that hit? Rich people? Who does that hit? Justin Trudeau?
And poor. And that is where people have to get this through their head. It is no longer a party of Democrats, Republicans, conservatives, liberals. Yes, ideologies, they exist. There are differences. But I'm talking about economic survival. 1 in 5 people in Toronto were going to a food bank. Rent, mortgages. It's buying a home in Canada. It's out of reach.
Right.
It's no longer even an option. And that is coming to a theater near you. They want zero carbon footprint by what, 2030?
But Joe, here's the thing, though. There's no such thing as a zero carbon footprint. You have human activity alone is going to produce carbon footprint. You can't do it. In other words, you can try all you want. I got a plastic bottle right here. You know how much oil it takes to produce plastic bottles? Do you know how much oil it takes to produce so many things that these people, these environmentalists say the world's coming to an end? Joe, there's always going to be a carbon footprint because it's natural. Oil is natural. It's not a bad thing. It's actually a very good thing. They just don't want you to have it at a cheap price because it means that you're able to fuel your car, heat your home, cook your food, and you don't need the effing government all over your back.
I agree, Joe, but this is what's being pushed. And that's why, again, people have to sober up. Because I'm going to tell you this right now. I'll just pick a place. I'm going to pick a place. You live in New Hampshire. You make $80,000 a year. Call yourself a Republican. Call yourself a Democrat. Call yourself a conservative. Call yourself a libertarian. You're getting crushed.
Right.
And that is, if you don't believe me, look at Europe and Canada. That is real. And people have to figure this out. The establishment does not represent the people. And the Donald Trump experiment should show you that. They do not want him because we've never had a candidate, like him or not. He threatens power structures, and they're not having it, Joe.
Well, let's talk about
Colorado's all about.
Well, here's another thing, too. This is why they get away with what they're getting away with in Colorado. So Real Truth News with Joe and Joe. If you're just joining us here, please share this video. You can find us all over the place at the front line with Joe and Joe, Real Truth News with Joe and Joe. And we're going to be going on every Thursday at 9 o'clock. Joe and I are back in action. Life got in the way over the last few months, but Joe and I are back. And also we have a bunch of other interview shows that we do that's on X and Rumble and all over the place. So please, if you like what we do, share our stuff. Joe, at the end of the day, I know we say it ad nauseum, okay? At the end of the day, the biggest culprit in this is the effing media. It's the media. In other words, they're going to convince you, okay? Just picture a bunch of meatheads only working for CBS, NBC, MSNBC, CNN, okay? A bunch of Rob Reiners who actually try to convince you if you vote for Donald Trump, you're threatening democracy. And that this is probably a good thing that Colorado's doing because Donald Trump caused the insurrection on January 6th.
Well, you're already seeing CNN pumping out the Supreme Court is going to decide who the president is, when in fact it's the uniparty that's deciding who the president is because they're taking Donald Trump off of the ballot in a state.
I will tell you this. I don't know if you saw it. I looked at it briefly. I forgot the gentleman's name. He was a clerk for Clarence Thomas and Scalia when he was alive, okay? He thinks... All right, I forgot. It was a major publication he was writing in. He thinks that the Supreme Court is going to take this up, regardless. So. Now, look, if John Roberts is going to be around a long time. He's not in bad health, from what you see. Okay, he's not a crickety old man. Okay, he's going to be around a long time. Is he really going to do this to us? That every time there's a legitimate challenge that the court needs to hear, Pennsylvania. In 2020 comes to mind. They should have heard that case when it was appealed about the elections in Pennsylvania. John Roberts balked on that. Okay, and they should have heard that case. Is he going to do this to us every time? Is he not going to hear this case? Because this has national repercussions, Joe. This is not about Colorado. Me in Arizona, you in New Jersey, this what Colorado has done affects us because that means I might not be able to vote for Donald Trump. And I have the right to vote for Donald Trump. Do you know where I'm going with that?
No, I agree.
See, you got Roberts doing that, and you got the media that carries their water. Joe, what say you? Because the media, to me, is biggest culprit in all this.
I don't know if he'll take it. I like to think he will. I don't know.
Hold on, Joe. Hold on one sec. My Kids is in the chat room. Yes, this is actually live, My Kids. Go ahead, Joe.
I like to think he will. I don't know if he will. I don't think, Joe, I'm going to be truthful with you. Again, I'm indifferent. Listen, if Donald Trump is on the ballot, I'm going to vote for him. I also like Vivek. I'll be truthful with you. I like him a lot.
He scares me a little bit.
But
he scares me a little bit.
But I'll tell you this.
Well, go ahead, because
neither of them comport with my Catholic faith. Neither Donald Trump. Donald Trump is going to go for a 15-week abortion ban. That's right. That's a fact.
We have no friends. We have no friends
that's
on the abortion
point.
front.
Like, Donald Trump is not the solution to America's problems. So, I mean, like, ultimately, if you ask me, and there has to be almost like a quasi-velvet revolution. Like that's what has to happen.
No, but
people
Joe,
have to take power back.
Oh, we did it. No, let me say something. Tom Turtle. Friend of ours, is in the chat room. Good to see you again, Tom. Female Casey Royals fan. Thanks for joining us. Good to see you too. Claudette's here. Claudette said, "My hometown, $700,000 to $1 million to buy a 2-bedroom home." Sounds like Scottsdale, Arizona, because that's where I am. And we got a bunch of other friends here in the chat room. Calvin's here with us. Yeah, Joe. It's like when you look at let's say the media. Okay, Nobody is really calling them out. Vivek, I will tell you this. Okay, let me throw this out there to you. Vivek made me happy because he's showing himself willing to at least challenge the media right to your face. He did that to Welker from MSNBC. You saw that, right? And he challenged her. He's throwing out. Now, here's what scares me. He's throwing out the red meat to conservatives and people who are angry at the media like you and I. But it better be real red meat. Not the type of red meat that Bill Gates wants you to eat. Okay, it better be a nice fat ribeye. He better not just be throwing that out there to us, and that's what scares me. Sounds good on stage, sounds better than DeSantis, Okay, I'm not judging by the track record. He sounds better than DeSantis. Certainly, he's better than the other crumbs, Nikki Haley and Mike Pence. So it's going to be interesting to see how it shakes out. But the fact is, you're right. We have on the abortion issue, we have no friends. Okay, and I'll tell you another thing. I'm going to throw it over to you. If and when, because all Republicans, Joe, Republicans that are in the uniparty, they want the abortion issue to go away now. They want it to go away. Roe versus Wade was overturned. That's all they care about. For them, politically, it's now about states' rights. That's all they care about. If they get a 15-week abortion ban federally, that's all they care about. They want to move past that issue because they want to get back to making money. That's what they want to do. So we have no friends there. But outside of that, obviously we're not voting Democrat. Okay.
No.
Bottom line is, John Roberts has to hear this, because at this point in time, Joe, I want to vote for Donald Trump. I want to vote for him.
I get it. I'm going to vote for him tue. I'll be truthful with you. I am I'm not alone. And it's sad to say, I don't have faith in our system anymore. I don't. They lost me, Joe. I don't have faith in it. I don't think it works anymore.
Can I ask you a question? You mentioned like a soft revolution. I know what you mean by that. Like a groundswell. Okay.
Yeah.
It happened twice in the last 15 years. It happened in 2010 as a response to Obama. Okay. And the Tea Party came in, if you remember. All right. And a lot of those Tea Party representatives and senators are still there. Unfortunately, they became part of the Uniparty. But there was a grassroots movement. The Tea Party was one of it. They got called racist by the media. They got called racist. There's nothing racial about it. It was a groundswell rebelling and reacting against Barack Obama. Joe, same thing happened in 2016 with Trump. The America Firsters, the MAGA people, they did not want Hillary Clinton to become president. And again, it was a legitimate function of our democratic process, and they could just not stand it. And now here we are with Colorado saying they don't even want the guy on the ballot.
But what I would say is it's also, if you ask me, a special interest issue. And the Supreme Court approved it. They approved super PACs. I'm against super PACs. Special interests run America. Like, I could pick on both sides of the aisle. I'll give an example. How is it legal for a bank to charge interest rates the way they charge them? How is it legal for corporations to not have to provide pensions for employees? How is that legal? Now we'll go to the other side of the aisle. How is it legal for the NEA to dictate to local municipalities how they are to run their school systems? How is that legal?
Right.
I can continue to go on and on both sides.
This is this long.
The special interest, that's what I'm saying. We have to take our country back. Like, it's a waste of time. These men, and that's one thing Vivek does say, and he's spot on. They're all owned. They're puppets. All of them are puppets. They don't represent me. And they simply don't. And no matter who you put in, because they give money to get something back. Pfizer does that. The military complex does that. The banks do that. Hollywood does that. And guess who gets crushed? Guess who gets left out? Me and you. And I got news for you, Democrats. You're getting left out too. They're using you. Reparations. All they're doing is buying votes. It's nothing more than buying votes. They throw people crumbs and they give you nothing. And that's why there has to be, I would like to see a revolution. I'm being serious. We need to take our country back where it's a country of we the people. It's not a country of we the people anymore. It simply isn't. And no matter who you put in there, you're limited. I've seen that through this experiment of Donald Trump. Honestly, Joe. And that's why I don't have faith in the country anymore. And I'm not alone. I was never that guy. I actually thought people had a fair shake. You don't have a fair shake. And I got
when we were kids, I think people had a much more of a fair shake. Definitely, like growing up, 1970s, blue collar unions, strong unions. not public sector union. My father was a Teamster. But my mom was in a public sector union. But that blue collar, I mean, you had a shot. You could buy a home, you could own a home. You didn't get taxed up to you know what. Like the one of our guests here in the chat room said, you got a house worth $700,000 to $1 million. In other words, in some of these places, so you're getting hosed on the price, you're getting hosed on the taxes, you're getting hosed on the interest rates, you're getting hosed. It never was this way. But like you said, Joe, everybody's trying to throw out solutions. I have libertarian friends, one libertarian friend in particular. Libertarians are not our friends either. They're not our friends. In other words, they're more than happy with a 15-week abortion ban. They don't want to hear about gay marriage. They don't want to hear, hey, listen, I'll tell you what, they probably don't even want to hear about the drag queens reading stories to your 5-year-old, to be honest with you. They're libertarians. They think they're a little bit too smart for everybody. That's their problem.
Well, that gets back to, I'll be honest with you, the solution is getting back to a Judeo-Christian mentality. Was it ever perfect in any place? No, never, ever. But there was a time where people basically had some form, we'll call it a North Star. Let's call it a North Star for, just to throw it out there, where there was a guiding principle in your life. We've become unmoored. We're an unmoored society. Joe, if you can't get 2 genders right, you're not going to vote for the right president.
No.
And the system, it doesn't work for people. And I got news for you. If they get away with this in Colorado, this is so in your face an attack against democracy. This is not an attack on Donald Trump. And I'll tell you this, I'll repeat it. If they did this to Barack Obama, I would be against it. And I'm not voting for Barack Obama. If they did this against Bernie Sanders, I would not be for it. And I'm not voting for Bernie Sanders. This is an attack on democracy. And all people of goodwill should have a problem with it. Sadly, they don't, because our people are sick, Joe. America has become unmoored and it's sick.
Well, we don't have that North Star that you're talking about.
No, and that's why we're not going to get the president.
But here's the thing, Joe. Here's the problem with America. When you start talking about the recognition of certain moral and ethical boundaries, certain things the government should not be doing, certainly certain things people should not be allowed to do. You should not be allowed to read. If you're a transvestite, you should not be allowed to read children's books to children in a library. No, you can't do that. The individual states should be under no obligation to recognize gay marriage, none whatsoever. That should be up to individual states. At best, it should be banned, really at best. But as soon as you start talking this way, Joe, the libertarians don't want to hear you. The country club Republicans don't want to hear you. Okay, you might have some blue-collar Democrats who still have some semblance of Christianity left. Okay, they like Democrats for life and people like that. Okay. But that's not enough for any sort of real coalition. Like I said, look, Ann Coulter put on X. She posted on X, Republicans need to stop talking about abortion. Joe, if you want to encapsulate all of our problems within, let's say, just the Republican Party, that tells you all you need to know right there. That's saying we're more interested in getting back to making money than we are about the deliberate murder of innocent human beings.
Well, that's a problem. And ultimately, Joe, what's going to happen is things are going to get worse, believe it or not. Believe it or not. And there's a long way down the road for that. We're going to get worse. And maybe then people will shake out of it. Maybe. But until then, there's no hope in sight. We're not electing ourselves out of this. There's no political messiah. People have to get back to basics. God, family, country. In that order. We're not going to jump to the country and forget about the God and the family.
Right.
The family structure is broken. Our people are broken. Depression is off the charts. Suicide is off the charts. Drug use is off the charts. People are simply unmoored. And society is fractured, and we're seeing the consequences of it. People need to take a sober look at it. Like a sober look at it. I'm not asking you to be a daily communicant. If you are, great. What I am asking you to do is to take a sober look at it and take a sober look at yourself. I take a sober look at myself regularly. If you do that, things will get better. If they don't, they won't.
Well, no, Joe. Listen, the issue you mentioned Judeo-Christian values. The thing that comes to my head more than anything when I hear this is that people need to ask themselves the question, or we need to ask, let's say, our fellow countrymen the question. Is the same question that Christ asked the lame man: do you want to be made well? I say it all the
answer is
time on the
no.
show.
At this point, because we're not, the pain point has to go up.
Well, that's the thing. See, you're not laying not able to walk, okay, crippled next to a pool in Judea 2,000 years ago, okay? But when the crap comes down in America, whether it be the financial system, whether they go to a digital currency and it's too late because now they're controlling your life, when they do all these things, and when the real hammer drops from the government, when these people come crying to me, Joe, when they come crying to me,
it's not going to be crying. We're going to be crying too.
No, I know, but the thing is, at least we're trying to prepare for it.
I know that, but I don't think there's a way to prepare for it, Joe. I'll be truthful with you. There's nowhere to hide. We're all getting sucked down the drain. That's the thing. I am just telling you, we're all, unless you're in that income bracket that is 5 million and up, even if you're own the $700,000 house, we're all getting sucked down the drain. That's why there has to be a coalition of people of goodwill to survive.
Right.
You want to survive? You want to eat? You want to live like a human being? That is the only way it's going to work. The price of meat is going to be $20 a pound. Gasoline is going to be off the charts. You're not going to be able to afford to have a car. This is everyone.
Right.
Yo, you see, I only wish, to be honest with you, I was not going to be affected. But I'm going to be. And this is what people have to see. I've been saying this for a few years. Like, to be truthful with you, if you make $1 million a year and you disagree with what I say, you can afford to. But if you make $80,000 a year, call yourself whatever you want to call yourself, libertarian, Republican, conservative, Democrat, whatever, you're getting flushed down the toilet too. Talk to the Canadians. Talk to the Canadians. It's not too far away, Joe. No. It's a 6-hour drive from my house. I could be at the Canadian border in 6 hours. They are suffering.
Right.
And this is the thing. It's everyone.
And did you catch, by the way, you probably did. If there's one thing that bothers me, let's stay on Canada just for a second, Joe. I know you're big on Justin Trudeau. If you want to see their attitude, and what I mean by they is the oligarchs, the globalists, Trudeau's definitely part of that. Okay. When I forgot this situation, but it was a press conference, and a Canadian citizen was asking Justin Trudeau, I think it was about the carbon tax or some other monstrosity that the Canadian government was imposing on the people. Do you know what that guy? I'm going to try to clean up my language moving forward. I promise. Do you know what that guy Trudeau said? He started yelling at that citizen because the citizen was saying, I'm suffering because of what you're doing to me, the government is doing to me. And he starts yelling at the guy, do you want to know? Do you want to know who's suffering? Well, the people of Ukraine are suffering, and that's who's suffering, the people of Ukraine. And you want to sit there and he yelled, Joe, at this guy, because the guy had a legitimate beef about the carbon tax or whatever it was that's crushing him, okay? And the price of beef, which I heard is through the roof, okay? And the guy's making a legitimate beef, and Trudeau yelled at him and said, you don't know suffering because you're not a Ukrainian. That's all you need to see when it comes to these globalists, Joe Resinello. Can you imagine that?
I agree with you, but not enough people do. Because to be honest with you, a lot of the globalist mentality, the climate, listen, I take care of the environment. I recycle. I'm conscientious. I like to think I am. Do you know what I'm saying? I drive a 4-cylinder car. I mean, I'm not like, taking private jets anywhere, but I'm going to tell you this. There's a saying, when you abandon God, when you don't believe in God, you'll believe in anything. This is their religion. You see, they've replaced the North Star, God, they worship the environment.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why people, again, regular people, vote for these people. This is their religion. I've heard people, a guy at work, nice guy, tells me, like, on Sundays, me and my son, we go clean a river. On Sunday, I go to church and receive Jesus Christ in the Eucharist. I don't clean a river. I want the river clean. I'm with you. I have no problem with that. But on Sunday, I'm going to church.
Right.
You see, it's their religion. And that's why they vote for it. Because they've abandoned God.
And then now here's the thing too. But when the hucksters like the John Kerrys of the world, when it's pointed out to them, well, but wait a minute, you fly on a private jet, or whether it's Leonardo DiCaprio, whether it's Justin Trudeau, no matter who it is, you guys are the ones you're putting carbon all over the place. Do you know what the people that actually support this environmental nonsense, you know what their attitude is? Well, they are fighting for the environment so they could fly in a private jet.
Joe, the same thing happened during COVID. It applies to you. It doesn't apply to me. And that's
do you really think, Joe, that any of those politicians, anybody who tried, well, I don't care if it was Gretchen Whitmer, if it was Joe Biden, I don't care who it was. Do you think that anything other than saline solution was in the vaccine that they got? Do you think they actually took that effing thing? I doubt it.
I'll tell you what, that's another conversation that's disgusting. I mean, these Pfizer made so much money. Moderna made so much money.
Right.
Billions and billions of dollars.
And they're still making it.
And the lies, here's the deal. No matter where you stand on that issue, they contradicted themselves left and right. Left and right. And I've even heard people, to be honest with you, that were pro-vax who've even said it. Yeah. That was a money grab to no end. To no end.
COVID was one of the biggest transfers of wealth in human history.
But once again, the uniparty wins, we lose. We lose. People have to smarten up. People of goodwill, for your own survival, have to smarten up.
See, but I said, go ahead, Joe. I'm sorry.
They're not. But listen, Joe, I mean, it's just going to get harder.
I said to libertarians, like, I agree. Like, a lot of libertarians, Joe, are against the uniparty. All right. They talk a good game. Okay. But then I've said to one of my libertarian friends, he's an atheist. Okay. I said, you want to be in a big tent with me? Okay. You want to be a coalition? I said, I'm a Roman Catholic. I'm tired of both parties. You're an atheist libertarian. You're tired of both parties. You rightfully point out that we have a uniparty. I said, but if I'm joining you, I'm not going to be pro-abortion. I said, I'm not recognizing gay marriage. How's that? I said, I think pornography should be banned. Okay, because it's shown to be a danger to society. I said, are you going to go along with that with me? I agree with you on everything else. I agree with market principles. I agree with getting out of foreign wars, closing bases overseas, slashing the military budget, along with a lot of the other nonsense the government does. I said, but on those things, I'm not going to compromise with you, Mr. Libertarian. I'm not going to. So, Joe, you could rail against the uniparty. The only way to do it is you're going to have somehow, some way, organically, we're going to have split offs again. It's got to be more than just one split off party.
Well,
There's got to be multiple parties.
Suffering is going to unite people. I'll use an example of race. In Brazil, the poor, there is no difference between black and white. None. Because they're all poor. They're poor.
Right.
Go to a slum in Brazil, white people, black people, doesn't matter. They have a common denominator. They're poor.
Right.
Well, guess what? That's going to bring people together. Suffering.
Right.
Give it time. It's already happening. I've seen it in the store when I go shopping.
Yeah.
It is going to bring people together. Suffering. And then maybe people will rethink some of their positions. And suffering has a way to reorientate you back to God.
Well, when you suffer, when you suffer, and even, and I don't mean this in a bad way. I'm saying even leaving God out of it for just for the moment, okay? But when you suffer, you're forced to have to do things differently. You're forced to have to confront the fact that you're now suffering and you need to do something about it. And what was the cause of that suffering? And Joe, this goes back to what we said earlier about blue collar people. You voted Democrat because they were pro-abortion. You voted for them because they fed you all this nonsense since the 1960s. You voted for it, and you wouldn't vote for the Republican because the Republican was probably pro-life. Well, then you get what you deserve.
But again,
no, I'm going to give you the final word.
Well, I just say honestly, though, I don't have faith in the Republicans either. They did. People have to clean up their act. They don't. They're basically on a leash. I don't expect anything from them. Anything. They won't be in power. They'll get their funds cut.
Joe, they got one. The Republicans have a 1-seat majority, in the House, and guess what? It's not doing us any good anyway.
No, that's
even if they had a 15-seat majority.
They're a waste of time. Like I said, the system. I don't trust Joe. I have no faith in the American system anymore. I honestly, I wish Joe. It hurts me to say it. I have no faith in it. I have faith, to be honest with you, in God, living a sacramental life, in my family, and ultimately, I believe a suffering is going to wash over Western civilization. It's happened in the past, and it's going to happen again. And then maybe people will unite. Until then, this stupid bull crap is going to go on. The only people who are going to benefit are the elites. Because
I would say this. We started this conversation, Joe Resinello at Real Truth News. Please, wherever you're seeing us here, Joe and Joe, Twitter, YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, please share the video with your friends, especially if you like the conversation. We started this, Joe, about thank you, Zeta, says Zeta Mello, says, a must listen. Thank you, Zeta. We really appreciate it. We haven't been on in a while because life gets in the way, but we're going to be here Thursday nights moving forward at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Joe, we started this conversation talking about Colorado. Here's the thing. I think I'm with you. There is no savior other than the Lord. We know that. All right. But I do think because he's so cheesed off at everything that's been happening to him, I think that Donald Trump is going to, if he gets elected, I think the federal government needs to watch out. Now, again, that's not a predictor of all of a sudden things are going to be rosy. Okay. But at the very least, to punch back at them a little bit. In other words, and maybe not even a little bit, maybe a lot. Okay, to get rid of certain agencies like the Department of Education, rein in the IRS, abolish the FBI and bring in a new form of that, abolish the CIA and give intelligence back to the military. Any of those things he does, I will put it like this to you, Joe, and then I'm going to give you the final word, will actually be somewhat of a benefit. Even in a temporal realm, it would be a benefit and would help us out, I think, a little bit.
Joe, all those things are on the table if he was to be elected, and that's why they won't let him be elected. They're not going. That is what people should look at here. It's not about Donald Trump. He is threatening the establishment, and they're not having it. Right. And that is why people, whether you like him or not, should be concerned. It concerns me. It shows how powerless we are.
Yeah.
It shows that we, the people, have no voice because they are telling you who you should vote for. They're going to push Nikki Haley, Joe. That's exactly who they're going to push. And right. I got news for you. The Democrats will deal with her because she will do nothing for people.
Right.
She's a rubber stamp, and that works. And that is what it's about. America needs to open their eyes. Forget about the Donald Trump thing. Look at your situation. Look at what they're doing to our democracy. Because ultimately, they're getting away with it. And the more they get away with it, the more emboldened they will be. The more they're going to take away your freedoms. And I got news for you. Times you think you're having a hard time now, just wait. Just wait.
Mm-hmm.
Gasoline in California is $7 a gallon, Joe Pasillo.
Oh, no, I know, but it's going to be it's coming down because it's an election.
Of course, I've
year.
already noticed that too. And by
Yeah.
the way, too many people will buy that and believe that too. It is sick.
Listen, it's really sick. Now, let's leave it here. Let's see what happens. I'll tell you this, Joe, and then we're going to get out of here. I don't underestimate Trump. I think he's always been one step ahead of them. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens with John Roberts. We're going to come back on the show every Thursday night. Real Truth News with Joe and Joe. Share this wherever you find us. If you go on YouTube, you'll see us at the Frontline with Joe and Joe, Rumble, Real Truth News, X, Frontline with Joe and Joe. Just Joe and Joe. Just everything's Joe and Joe. And this way we can get the message out there, have these great conversations. We got a nice crowd for our first time back in a few months. Curly May, haven't seen in a while, and a few others down here in the chat room. So we thank you for stopping by. But yeah, Joe, we'll see what Roberts does. It'll be a conversation. As we move along, and we'll keep making it happen. So Joe Rossinello, as always, been a pleasure. Peace. Securing your data privacy is more important than ever. Start your free privacy scan and see how much of your data is being sold on the internet. Offering data breach monitoring, bulk data removal, and agency protection, DataSeal.io is the best and most affordable way to secure your data from ending up in the wrong hands. Remove your data today from the internet with DataSeal.io. That's DataSeal.io.